I'm Ted. This is the Real Ted G podcast. And today, super special guest. He's actually the president of the Patchogue Chamber right here in town where we live and work. And his name is David Kennedy. And thank you for joining me on my podcast. I can't wait to start talking to you about the Patchogue Chamber and Patchogue.
Absolutely. Ted, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. One thing, I'm the executive director of the chamber. I do, because I'm visible. A lot of people will say I'm the president, but we're actually installing a new president in a few weeks, Joe Bennett from Edward Jones. But I've been the executive director.
My neighbor.
Yes, your neighbor, your friend and neighbor.
I live across the street from her. Oh, so okay, because one of our managers is a co-president in the Wading River Chamber, the newly formed, and he insists that we have to call him El Presidente from this point on.
Well, Patchogue. One of the things that makes Patchogue Chamber special is that we do have a full-time office with a full-time staff. Not every chamber has that. So, as executive director, I'm the leader of the staff of the Chamber of Commerce, and I think that's one of the reasons why our chamber does well. The position I hold, I've been executive director now 10 years, is a position Patchogue community has had that goes back into the 50s. And I think, why our chamber has always been strong and remains strong is there is somebody that's responsible to make sure all the chamber responsibilities do move forward.
And you guys have done. I've only seen it in the works for the past 12 years. So I will admit you've obviously been working at it for a lot longer. But I've seen Patchogue just transform. I think the beginning had to be 12 years ago, in my opinion.
I mean, you could even go back into like 96-ish. I've lived in Patchogue all my life. So I've been here, when I was young, in the 70s, we were still a very strong retail town. But then, with the advent of the shopping mall, the retail lost its luster and our downtown started to decline. And certainly by the late 80s and early 90s, we were at rock bottom, with over 70% vacancy and not much happening. In 96, the village purchased the Patchogue Theater. They redeveloped this old lace mill property on the west end of town, and one by one restaurants started opening up in our community after the theater opened. And that's when the Brick House was a very important establishment that opened up in the 96. And that's when you really started getting a little bit of a buzz and people started opening their eyes like, oh, what's going on in Patchogue? And then our mayor, Paul Panieri, came in, I believe in 2004 as mayor, after many years as a trustee. And he really just took the ball and ran with it. And, he deserves all the credit he gets in really transforming our downtown. And, as a real estate agent, and this well, really one of the key components of our transformation was the new housing opportunities that open up in and around the downtown area.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. New Village. That's gorgeous. Beautiful.
100%. And that was a controversial project at that time around 2006, 2008. And our mayor stood firm supporting that project when many people doubted it would succeed. And, it's opened up, I believe, in 2014. So we're a good 6-7 years into them being open. And you can't imagine our downtown without New Village.
And in fact, what we've noticed from the real estate standpoint, we do reports every year, and we monitor where people move from. And did they move? Bought in Patchogue? Did they move from Patchogue? Did they move from Sayville? Did they move from Melville? And what I've noticed definitely in the last decade, the percentage has grown. It's actually grown higher and higher. The people that bought in Patchogue, moved from Patchogue, and I have to believe it has to be a lot of that, like a project like New Village brings in people that maybe had not seen Patchogue, but they experience it for a few years, and then they decide to purchase, and they purchase right here. Yeah,
absolutely. You hit on it right on target, Ted, in that Patchogue kind of has bucked the trend of a lot of Long Island. Long Island, and we still are. We're still talking about housing crisis and how young people could stay and afford to live here. Patchogue is a model of how that could work. Because that's really what's made Patchogue turn around is young people who felt maybe priced out of other communities around Long Island. There were more opportunities here. Most young people who just establish themselves, home ownership isn't, especially on Long Island, isn't something you could just jump jump right into.
Not an impulse buy.
Yeah, that's for sure, and it shouldn't be, right? So yeah, having rental opportunities in a setting, a downtown setting where everything's within walking distance, it's really what young people are looking for as they're establishing themselves to future home ownership.
Yeah. And that whole community, but something. I'm not saying just something to do, but it's like, okay, you're not just getting a rental, an apartment, and it's like, oh, I still have to travel. It's just something about the way the community is set up. We do have a lot of restaurants.
Yeah.
I enjoy them.
No, I mean, and the funny thing, back when I was talking about the 70s, there was really maybe one or two restaurants in Patchogue, and I think now in the downtown area we're over 30,
It took me 3 years to drink my way through Patchogue. The first 3 years here, 2012 to 2015, and then in 2016 I had to go on a diet.
No, I got
go
you.
Exercise.
I always joke, you could just gain weight walking around the streets and smelling all the great food that's being cooked in this town, and and it's what it's great about our restaurants that I love is the variety. There's every different culture is represented, and they're all exceptional at what they do, and it's great that you can come down here on any night, and you don't necessarily need to know where you're going. Just walk and see what catches your mood.
Absolutely.
And it's there for you.
Yeah, no, I mean it's very impressive. And I was so glad when Anthony reached out and said, "Oh, David will do the podcast." I was like, "Oh, that's great." So I've been interviewing here and there. I call it interviewing, but I'm not Oprah. But I've been interviewing people in different fields, whether it's mortgages, cars, actually, video editing, and juggling. People that are great at what they do, and that's why I kind of feel that this kind of fits into the series. You yourself, as well as the Patchogue Chamber, I think you've done something that I think it's being repeated, and that's great. Imitate. I was in Bayshore yesterday evening, and I was like, oh look. Feels like Patchogue.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Well, it's funny. The history at Bayshore and Riverhead's another town too that very similar in their ups and downs throughout the history. I think our downtowns are much more city-like than like a Port Jefferson or a Sayville or a Bellport, which are beautiful, beautiful village, but they're more that quaint, real village feel, where Bayshore and Patchogue and Riverhead, there's a little bit of it's a culturally diverse communities, much more working class communities, what I like to call more like real Long Island in a lot of
bustling.
respects. Yeah, hustle and bustle. That's I have this. I've thrown out a crazy idea. Ted. Suffolk County is one of the only counties in the state of New York that doesn't have its own city, an actual recognized city. Like even Nassau has Glen Cove and Long Beach. So I've always advocated, hey, why don't we take the whole zip code of Patchogue? Because Patchogue is a little segmented. You have the village, and then you have East Patchogue and North Patchogue and Canaan Lake. Let's put them all together. We'll call it the first city of Suffolk County. Now,
love it.
A lot of people. Well, I love that you love that, and let's talk more about that. But look, some people will say, "Hey, I moved out of here because I wanted to get away from the city," and there is still that element out here on Long Island, certainly. But I think I would love to be the first city of Suffolk County. Why not? And maybe someday it'll happen. But as you said, our history. Some people, I want to stay a quaint little village. Patchogue has never been a quaint little village. If you look at the history from our boat building, maritime, and shellfishing days at the turn of the century,
right.
We were a little bit resort. Our retail time, we've always been hustle and bustle. The only time we were quiet were maybe the late 80s and early 90s when we were depressed. And we certainly don't want that again. So Patchogue's got a city-like spirit, and I think we should embrace that more and not be afraid of that kind of designation, because I think it would raise the profile. There hasn't been a new city created in New York State since 1943. Rye, New York was the last time New York established a new city. Why? That's 70, 80 years, and the birth of cities is always a good sign of economic growth and strength, so why can't we
when Patchogue pulls it
way?
Off, and you're because the sewer line is actually being extended into
100%. Our mayor has been very generous in extending. I mean, that's one of those projects that was, those previous elected officials back in the 50s and 60s who brought in a sewage treatment plant so much ahead of their time. That was something that no community was doing at that time that we did, and we wouldn't have the restaurants in our community if we didn't have the sewers that were established here, and that's why other communities are looking for that funding to do the same thing. I believe Kings Park is a community that just recently got established some funding for sewers, and something they've been asking for a long time, and I applaud them that they're going that route as well, because it does make a difference.
You pulled a crazy idea. I'm the king of crazy ideas, along with king of Long Island real estate.
I gotcha. Yes. I gotcha. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You guys let me get away with a lot of things. I advertise with you guys.
No, you do, and we're very blessed. You're a very visible presence in our community.
Well, you'll have to thank a mutual friend of ours, Terry Tuthill.
Uh-huh.
He always talks to me. He's like, Ted, we're doing the Patchogue Chamber magazine. Do you want to participate? So we started participating as an office, and it'd be an office ad after office ad. And then at one point, it was not in the office budget. I was like, Terry, you know what? I'll just do it. And they let me do my ad. They let even if people have complained about it.
No, I love it. It's a great ad. I look forward to seeing it. You've been a very big supporter of our annual publication, our Discover Patchogue magazine every year. We're grateful for that. And I see you out. You're not, obviously you're doing a great job as a real estate agent, but you've become a recognized figure in the community, and you're getting involved in so many things. Wow,
that's a big compliment.
No, well, we appreciate that. And, I see it. I know. One of the best things about my job is I get to see what people in the community are doing in a very broad way, and you certainly stand out.
Well, I feel that the one area that I haven't been able to do as much as I really should and I want to, and I'm going to now start, especially if my neighbor is the president, I'm probably going to start attending a lot more of the chamber meetings. I felt like I thought, oh no, the people from the Patchogue Chamber are here. When I went to it was right here in Patchogue, when my colleague is co-president of Wading River.
Right.
I'm like, oh, they're going to think I'm cheating on them.
No. You know what? Every community chambers are an important part of every community. Pretty much every community has a chamber, and I always tell every business, because sometimes I get businesses from outside Patchogue that want to join, and we welcome any business to join our chamber. Wherever your office is, doesn't matter to us. If you want to interact with our vibrant business community, we welcome you. But I always say to anybody outside of Patchogue, have you reached your local chamber? Don't forget them, because the best thing to do is support where your surroundings are.
I think that every community has a chamber. I think, but is every chamber doing the things that Patchogue did? It has nothing to do with funds or money. Mm-hmm. It's about, I think, like people who care. People who want to go out of their way, like you put together these events, and obviously the mayor has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Live After 5 is a huge hit.
Yeah, Live After 5 is certainly the biggest event that we're so known for. My position allows me to travel in a lot of different circles around Long Island and different networking and business events. And always the first thing when I say I'm from Patchogue, a Live After 5. You guys do, it's amazing how much that event has mean to the community. It's a lot of work. It could, if you see me in June and July and August, I could be a little snippy because it's a lot of work putting a Live After 5 together. I can't believe, I think my favorite month of the year now is January, because there's nothing really much going on in January, and I can take it easy.
Right, because you've also done, you're also involved with the mini New Year's Eve.
Yeah, Midnight on Main. Yeah, that was something I give a shout out to former village trustee Jerry Crean, who's the chairperson and really the founder of that event. He came to me, I guess it's been at least 6 or 7 years, maybe 8 years ago, and proposed the idea. And, at first I'm like, really? And then and what's really great about that event too, originally it was going to be a ball drop at midnight, like they do at Times Square.
Which is what I thought. I went to the first one.
Right. And, and the mayor was a little concerned because of the nightlife. And he says, are we really going to want to exasperate a nightlife on a busy night anyway? And the restaurants were concerned too, because, hey, you're going to pull out of the bar in my restaurants the time when I want them there. Everybody wants to be there for that 12 o'clock toast. So the mayor, Paul Panieri, was the one that said, why don't we do it at 9 o'clock? And at the time I was like, well, that's silly. 9 o'clock, midnight, why? But now that we've done it and we're into our 7th or 8th year of doing this, the families, what's great about the event now is that it serves two purposes. Families who want to come down and bring their families to a Times Square-like experience can do it in their backyard and have a nice time, and it's not too late for the kids and they can go home. And then for the younger crowd that's looking to spend the new year in Patchogue, it's a great way to start their night.
Yeah.
So what we've ended up doing is help feed the restaurant. So after we do our event and celebrate our midnight, then we can support the restaurants, and everybody goes and celebrates the new year with the rest of the world after we're done.
That's what I love about it. You could do that, and then you could do your New Year's anywhere,
exactly.
Anywhere you want it.
And then I get to use a great slogan like Patchogue's ahead of its time.
100%. Yeah, I have a crazy idea. One of these days, my birthday is January 1st.
Oh,
so one of these days, I wanted to, you can figure out the time zones, and you can actually celebrate New Year's several times during the night. With the right kind of flights. But I think I forget if you have to start in Japan and travel backwards.
Or Australia, New Zealand, somewhere around there is where it all starts. Well, and then every time zone, you got to get everybody saying happy birthday to you like a couple of dozen times.
And
That'd
gifts.
be great.
Don't forget gifts.
Well, I know. Now that we know that, maybe we can incorporate a little happy birthday after we drop the ball this New Year's Eve to you.
Oh, you do that. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be great. Everyone will love us. But I'm very impressed. I was so happy when you were going to be a guest on here. And it goes on to the things that are great. I think you guys have established such a nice community, such a sense of community. When people say, definitely we have a lot of restaurants, and that's great.
Right.
It's not the town effect. It's not like a scene out of Beetlejuice. If you want that, you go to Bellport.
No. Hey, what's great about Long Island is every town does have its own little identity and its own feel, and it gives everybody a reason to visit all our towns. And Patchogue is very connected to a lot of the other communities. There's a great organization, Vision Long Island. Eric Alexander, a great small business lead, advocate for Long Island, and we get to network with all these towns. And if anything, certainly we don't want to live through the pandemic experience again. But what was one of the positives pulling out of that is the connections I made with other communities, and that sense of we're all together. And now we collaborate. Patchogue's a great collaborating town. We're all about collaboration. We don't.
That the key factor. If you
had
to say.
You know what? Yes, I think that is some part of the secret to our special sauce in Patchogue is that, and the mayor deserves the credit of putting it all together, but. I've been into other other communities, and sometimes the struggle of moving forward is because there's such opposing forces not really working with each other. Here in Patchogue, that's never been the case. Our residents, our business community, the village, the business improvement district, Dennis Smith, give him a big shout out, our chamber, we're all working together. We support each other. We don't compete against each other for grant money. We all agree on a project, and then we all work together to make that happen. So that has probably one of to me, the most important thing that Patchogue has kind of risen a little bit above and a little bit ahead of other towns that are trying to do the same kind of redevelopment.
Collaboration. I love that word.
Yeah.
It's many syllables. Yeah. You sound smart when you say it, but I think that's a key factor in success.
100%. And, you're a big part of that now, because another thing that I like about our chamber over the years is that we're forming these committees of like-minded business models working together. And it started with our restaurant community and our retail association. And now, Ted, you're one of the founding people on our real estate committee that we just formed recently.
I hate to get credit for things I don't do, but I'll accept it.
You were there. You were at the first meetings that we've had. You're there, and you're helping start this new committee, and that's where collaboration happens.
Yeah, I was most happy. I did it for one selfish reason: to support my agent. She's actually the secretary on that committee, Monica.
Right.
So you do something nice, and that's great. It always pays dividends because I brought 2 extra guests. Because, sometimes you think, I don't want to be bored. So we brought 2 extra guests, and they're both actually probably going to become members. One is probably going to become a member of the Ronkonkoma Chamber as well.
Excellent.
His little office is in there.
Yes.
And another person was a friend of mine from mortgages, and they're right in Patchogue. They're on Main Street. I was shocked when I said, "You're not a member of the Chamber?" I said, "I was told I have to be a member of the Chamber the first day I got here." Deborah Remy, and she was like, "Oh, no, we have to be members of the Chamber."
I know Deborah, and that's great that she has. I mean, certainly, if you're opening up a business, you should join your local chamber, if for anything, to just support your community that you're in, because that's what any chamber is doing. And they, everybody, all chambers try, and we're lucky, as I said, that we have an office with a staff. Not every chamber has that, and I do feel for those smaller chambers where the president of the chamber has to run their business and then run the chamber too. That's a lot take on. So I respect those
so
communities.
so staffing.
And as I said earlier, right, that's a key success. I mean, look, Gail Hogue was the executive director prior to me, and then Jerry Sadowski is a name what I remember as when I was young, who was the chamber executive in the community. They've always, whoever the chamber executive has always been a recognized figure in the community, and I think that's why Patchogue's chamber has that edge. That back in the 50s they decided to create this position, and I think our community and our chamber has certainly reaped the benefits, regardless of the person holding the title. I'm lucky enough to be that person today, but it's really the office that makes it happen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The infrastructure, the support staff. Oh, they're the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
I'm just on an ad.
No, well, that's important. That's taking an extra step to support our community. Obviously, that the funding you put into those ads are supporting the events and the things that our chamber is able to produce. And believe me, it's a lot of money to Live After 5. It's a lot, and we don't make it much of a profit. Sometimes we even lost some money with a Live After 5, but. We know with some of that stuff, it's more about what it does for the community. Even if the chamber took a net loss when all is said and done a little bit, we got a net plus by the thousands and thousands of people that came into our town and support the businesses. The chamber's not here to make money. The chamber's here to help the businesses.
Collaborating, it's a two-way street, because if we can't sit here and enjoy, as real estate agents, enjoy the comforts of Patchogue, which are slightly easier to sell, because there's a following. I remember 10 years ago, someone said, "I'm only looking at Patchogue," and I said, "Okay, but do you want to see like Holbrook?" They were condos or something. It's just like a random story, and I'm thinking, oh, they only want Patchogue. Okay, good for them. And just in general, I feel like the housing. There's a lot of different thoughts on the housing. If there is a crisis, there's definitely a transition. But I think that in communities like this one, especially, but in other communities that have another driving factor for the millennials, whether it's the millennials or the soon-to-be Gen Zers, they'll be in the purchasing seat soon. It's like another driving factor, another avenue that buyers are coming from, and it helps so when the market maybe shifts and becomes a little bit slower, not as easy to sell a home, we're still going to have that one factor at least. Some places have water. We have the water as well.
Yeah.
So there's all different factors that drive the buyer pool, and a lot of people don't think about that stuff, but it's a two-way street. So when I'm asked, I think we did a commercial with you guys, because it was, and it's always the same person who comes, who calls to sell it. So obviously he knows he has an easy mark. So I remember we did a commercial, and that was kind of fun. It was like, it was the beginning of video. Well,
no, I've seen you in some interesting costumes every once in a while walking around town.
I walked into the chamber, and I had forgotten I was still wearing the mask. So it was a full Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, and I remember.
And so I'm like, hey, has the new edition of the Patchogue Chamber magazine come out yet? and who's the gentleman that's behind
John, my assistant. Who does
John's
amazing work.
No, it'll be on Saturday. And I said, okay. And then it said, I heard the inside cover is great. And he's like, oh. And then we walk out, and the cameraman looks at me and says, does that guy know who you are? Like, like in general? And I said, yeah. You're like, but you're wearing the mask. And I said, oh.
That's so funny.
So
that
and then
is so funny.
Then poor John was like, oh. And then he said, oh, you should have waited. It would have had like David in the office.
Yeah, no,
like, oh,
he told me. I remember he told me that you would come in full Spider-Man costume.
I had fun with that Spider-Man costume. I'm telling you, you were on the street and people would just honk their horn. Yay, Spidey. And I was like, this is great.
Well, you know what? Our fall festival, part of our fall festival, Saturday, October 14th, is a little Halloween costume parade. If you ever wanted to come down and join us in a Spider-Man costume.
I have an agent who pulls off a great Captain America.
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
Well, I have several other costumes. I have a Thor costume.
I'm sure we can create a nice little sponsorship package for you to sponsor the Halloween costume parade as part of our fall festival. You were interested?
I think we'd be interested.
Yeah, all right. I like it. We'll talk more about that at off air.
Yeah, I mean, and now you gave me this other idea. I'm gonna. I always believe we put things out there and they happen. They manifest. Everyone thinks it's magic, but it's actually the hard work you do to get there. I love the idea. Patchogue as a city?
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. There's a few people that have coalesced around that idea with me as well. So it's not an easy process. It's not something you could just snap your fingers. I've looked into it. It would probably be a good 10 years to start the discussion to it, the actual being established, maybe more, because there would be a lot of studies and discussions. And what I even say too is even if after all this time, the ultimate decision is no, not to be a city, it's not feasible to go that route. I think the discussion and the consideration itself is worth the time and effort, because I think in the process, whether we establish it as a city or not, I think we'll get to learn a lot about ourselves and what our future should look like, and it would help us plan for the future even better. And exactly. So I think
what would be one that you see, and this is obviously off the record.
Sure. No,
but what would be one benefit? What do you think?
I think raising our profile. I mean, just the fact that it's been 80 years since a new city was established in the state of New York, that alone would certainly establish attention. People all over New York State would probably be talking about what? Who is this? A new city, first in 80 years? Patchogue, who are they? I mean, with all the great success that we've had in Patchogue, sometimes I do worry we all collectively maybe are patting ourselves on the back a lot, but there's still room for growth.
I don't think you can pat yourself on the back at all.
Room for improvement, and I don't think we should ever lose sight is that as much Patchogue is known in like a 30 square mile area, we're still an unknown entity to even like people in New York City and even farther and wider. And for me, the next step for Patchogue would be if we could establish a little bit of a niche tourist kind of economy. Patchogue, one of the unknown areas of Patchogue is that we do have our own connection to Fire Island. If you're not a local, you probably don't know about Davis Park, that the town of Brookhaven community that we're connected to by ferry, or the national park that we're connected to known as Watch Hill, Fire Island National Seashore, which is beautiful. We just had a little event there last night where we brought dozens of people who had never been there before and are amazed when they see the beauty and the pristine nature of this beautiful beach, ocean beach setting that we have.
I had been there once before on the 5th grade field trip.
Right.
That's how I
and you got to, and it's, I think when people see it, they're like, wow, because it is so nature oriented. So to me, that's our hook, that we could start attracting people more far and wide to stay. Now, the next question is lodging, right? And thankfully, our mayor, Paul Pontieri, I know that's the number one project that he still wants to try to accomplish. And, there are rumors on the street that, maybe we might be hearing about a little boutique hotel concept being established in Patchogue. If that comes to fruition, then us as a chamber can create these packages that we could promote far and wide to come to Patchogue for 3 days, and it include the ferry tickets and the hotel stay. It'll be in we have a train station in town that you could walk to the hotel.
Yeah, you go to Vermont for 2 to 3 days. You stay at a bed and breakfast.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I love the idea.
I mean, I've heard some talk about some plans. Our mayor, I'm sure, will be discussing this further. He did just recently announce that he is running again for another term, and we're very happy for that, because I know there's a few projects that are on the docket that he'd like to see through, and he's the perfect person to make sure they are accomplished.
And deputy mayor, he's also on the same page.
Jack Krieger, amazing person, and he does so much for the community. He's the very responsible for running of the Patchogue Theater, running of our public safety in the community. We got a great administration.
Another thing that I really have enjoyed about Patchogue ever since I got here, they say 6 degrees of separation.
Right.
But I feel like in Patchogue, it's amazing. So I'm Greek. So if you ever go to a Greek wedding, or if you ever go anywhere and you find another Greek person there, like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Athens. I'm from the... And suddenly, somehow, they figure it out. Me, maybe less than others, because I'm more removed. I got here when I was 4. But when I was used to running into other Greeks, they were like, oh, well, my cousin is your second or third cousin, because so it was amazing. But here in Patchogue, it's amazing. I think it's 4 degrees of separation.
Oh, definitely, maybe even 2. I mean, especially if you're of an Italian descent in Patchogue,
there's really
the
4 last
Italian
names,
families
right?
back in the 20s and 30s, they really built this town. I always say, Paul is not, for many people in Patchogue, he's not Mayor Pontieri, he's Uncle Paul. He's everybody's uncle in this community. The love. Even I think some people call him Uncle Paul, even if they're not directly related. They want to be.
He used to stop in
they
here
want him to be his uncle.
He used to stop in here all the time. Obviously, his friend, I think, growing up, is actually the person we bought this company from. And one of my other agents, he was director of the theater for quite a while.
John Ashland.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, that's right. I forgot John was.
One of my other agents, she was Grand Marshal at the St. Liberata Fair, I think like five or 6 years ago, Joanne Solaro.
Oh, yes.
Right? She was Grand Marshal.
Yes. Wow. All right.
Well,
certainly Caldwell Banker is one of those names that has had a very strong presence in Patchogue.
That's Gasper Solaro, who owned the residential office here. So Coldwell Banker, that makes this Coldwell Banker one of the oldest Coldwell Banker. Coldwell Banker moved their headquarters from California to New Jersey about. I'm not an expert, but let's pretend 20 years ago. I'm going to misquote Coldwell Banker. What are they going to do? Take my franchise? Take my logo, please. No. But they're a great organization. I mean, they're almost 200 years old. But they moved. So when they were Coldwell Banker here, John tells me the stories that they remember being flown out to California for headquarters. I'm like, California headquarters? I know that's where they originated. So this, I think, may be a very long-standing Coldwell Banker
I'm
office.
sure it is. It's certainly, and you mentioned Gasper Solero locally, Geppy. Everybody knows him as Geppy. He is, he's one of those unspoken about people that are responsible for the vibrancy in our downtown, because certainly he's represented most of the businesses and the properties as they've commercial properties here. So
I think he would have been rated
as one of the pillars of our community, without a doubt, that helped establish what's going on. And he even taught me a thing or two when I first, I was very gung-ho 10 years ago when I started this job, and I'm always want to help any way I can. And we've had a couple of times people walking into our office looking for spaces to open up a business. And in one particular case, I kind of I happen to know who the property owner was, and I connected them. And Geppy reminded me, I'm a chamber member here, and you should be sending it to me before you send it to there. And he was 100% right.
Well, you folks
learned that lesson. No, now we do. Now, when we get that in, we always we pull out our chamber book and we say, these are all our real estate members, and these are the people you would talk to. And I'll be honest, when people are looking for commercial space, Geppy has always been one of the first people I'll direct people to, because he is so established in this community, and he really knows the history of our business community like no one else.
And he is a sharp guy.
Well, incredible. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember something he said when we did our ribbon cutting. And again, shout out to Terry Todd Hill. He put together our ribbon cutting.
Terry's awesome.
Him and his wife. They got they invited people. They got the ribbon, obviously. So we're about to walk outside, and we had a really great crowd. We had an amazing crowd for a ribbon cutting. We couldn't fit the people in this building. It was fun. So we're about to walk out. I'm like, "Oh, Geppy, come on out." And he's like, "Oh no, this is your show." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know it was my show, but hold on a second. Get me that microphone." But yeah, no. From that point on, I was like, "Wow, what a nice guy." I don't know. He's been really great.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I obviously am a huge fan of the Patchogue Chamber for many reasons, but mostly because I think just what you guys do. You're open-hearted. You're open-minded. And you've brought such a vitality here.
Thank you. Well, I mean, what you just said, I feel like you just described the Patchogue community. So then the chamber is just a reflection of what I think makes Patchogue special. There is that. Everybody, what I love about Patchogue the most is that you could have lived here all your life. You could have moved in last week. You could be the richest or not the richest, or whatever your social or cultural background is. It doesn't seem to matter here. All those labels don't exist in Patchogue. We're just one community, and it's inspiring. I think people who move here feel it, and that's why there's all the organizations in Patchogue or leading organizations, whether it's the Rotary Club or the Knights of Columbus or the Kiwanis or the Lions Club, the Patchogue chapters are always the most active chapters on Long Island because there's that spirit in this community that you just don't find everywhere else, and it's certainly, again, one of the key reasons that I think Patchogue moves up. There's no airs about us. We're very, come on in, the water's fine to anybody and everybody that wants to be here.
Literally, the water is fine.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful
it is. Beautiful beaches.
Do you remember a statistic? It had to be, this is a 6-year-old statistic. I remember knowing about it. Something about how much money that, everything that's happened in Patchogue, how much money was tallied as being brought into a community. And I remember the number. I feel like it was...
Oh, the grant money. I mean, if you had... and I want to give a shout out to Marion Russo, who's the head of the Community Development Agency in the village of Patchogue. She's responsible, along with Dennis Smith and others, of writing grants. And I think the grant support that we've gotten from other levels of government are in the... hundreds of, millions of dollars over the last 20 years. Yes. It's epic. And, she's another unsung hero in this community. Locally, we all know Marion, but I think on a larger scale, maybe she's not as known, but a major key player. I always say nothing's happened in Patchogue in the last 20 years that hasn't crossed Marion's desk and had her eyes on it and her working on that project. And she does so much more outside of what she does in her job. She's the vice president of our nonprofit Greater Patchogue Foundation, which is something unique. Not every chamber has that. Our chamber has its own nonprofit foundation that does a lot of community betterment projects. We're the caretakers of an historic cemetery in town known as Lakeview Cemeteries, our beautification committee,
you did
our cultural heritage committee,
yes.
St. Liberata, our St. Patrick's Parade, our Hispanic Parade that was going to happen this Sunday. I don't know when this is airing, but Sunday, September the 23rd, was going to be the Hispanic Parade, but we got an impending storm. It's coming up this weekend. It is being postponed to a date to be determined yet.
Okay.
My phone is going off right now as people are going back and forth texting and trying to figure out when the date of that parade is going to be. But we're excited about that because...
Is it the first time?
This will be our second one.
Okay.
Last year was the first one, and when I started this job 10 years ago, when I interviewed for this job, I didn't know I was going to get the job, and I kind of challenged the board in my interview in a way because I love our cultural diversity. That's what makes us special. And certainly in the last 20 years, it's the Hispanic community that's really been a growing, vibrant part of Patchogue. But when I looked at the board of directors of the chamber at the time, we're 30% Hispanic in Patchogue, but I didn't see that represented on our chamber board. And I said, we got to change that. We need to connect with that community. So I'm proud during my tenure, we've established our Latino Leadership Connect Group. And we've been hosting now for 8 years. We just did it last week, Hispanic Heritage Celebration at the Patchogue Theater that we're so grateful for, that they host that for us every year. And then now we've established, thanks to Liz Carrillo, the village trustee, the first Hispanic village trustee that we've had that now has established this parade in our community as well. So we still got a long way to go to connect with our Hispanic community, but we're making nice progress
and
there.
These parades are not cheap.
Oh, no. And it's a lot of work. I mean, I guarantee you, and I don't have proof, but I'm pretty confident that nobody closes their main street more than Patchogue does for different events. I think we counted it once, and it was close to 24 times a year that we're closing it for a street festival or for a parade. Wow. And it's a lot of work, and it's very taxing on the village. I give the village so much credit that they allow for that, because it is kind of another thing that makes us special. Most communities have one or two. We have 12.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So we work through it because usually it's a weekend, and I know my agents that show houses and do open houses and do everything. I've never seen a place close down a main street and have it not be such a problem. I'm not going to name names.
The village, the Department of Public Works, they're kind of, again, unsung heroes that do all that work to clean, to close the road, and our public safety who close the roads for us. They are, again, we couldn't do it without them. And they got it down to a science now because
like
we do it so many times.
I've never had it be, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be like, they close the road and I'm stuck in the office. But thank goodness I have a truck. But yeah, no, you guys do it. It's like a science.
and I want to, I surely should say I'm grateful to all our business owners because look. There's always pluses and minuses when you close the main street. Certainly, you're blocking some normal traffic and access. Hopefully, the payoff is that these events and things that we do are bringing a lot more feet on the street than we would normally have on those days when we don't do those events. So that's hopefully the trade-off.
Yeah. But you said it, pluses and minuses. So
right.
I train, and I don't want to use the word mentor, but I train agents, and I run this office, and it's a collaboration, and people have to always understand there's pluses and minuses, and the trade-off. Think about the trade-off. I always say it with agents. It seems like they quit right just as they've done all this hard work, and they quit right before the payoff is happening.
Right.
That's a bad choice of words in real estate, but right before it's like, wow, did you think you're not getting the trade-off? It's like, yeah, just keep going. It's very different. Real estate is not for everyone.
No, I give you a lot of credit. I mean, that's
I give you guys a lot of credit. I can only imagine what kind of how to be able to work with so many people across the board, so many different people, and put these projects together. We can just about form a really great office meeting. You hit that. Is certainly the joy. One of the joys of my job is I get to meet so many diverse groups and people. And my background, I'm not a business background. I'm communications, I'm public relations. I have a previous history as very involved in local government and being an aide in different government agencies and elected officials. So if I ever ran a business, I would be very concerned would it succeed. But I've learned so much about so many different businesses and how you guys operate. And I've always appreciated small businesses, but my appreciation for small business is tenfold since, because our small businesses are the backbones of the communities that we live in. You need them to survive for a community to survive, and your property values. Our vibrant Main Street means a vibrant residential property values that surround that Main Street. We're all enjoying that.
So we all, that, and our mayor knows that, and that's why he's been very supportive of businesses. And Paul's not the person to say no, we can't. Paul say let's try. Yes, we can. And he always finds a way to support businesses. And sometimes even stand like the New Village project is the perfect example of Paul. It was pretty 50-50 split at the time of those who supported the project and those didn't. And Paul very firmly put his foot down in support, and it transformed our downtown. So.
Oh, it did. It's beautiful. What a great project. That's about faith.
Yeah,
good for him.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad to hear he's running again.
Yeah. No, God bless him. It'll be his sixth term as mayor, and no one's earned it more. I think everybody in Patchogue feels, Paul, you can be as mayor as long as you want to be. Because you've done such a great job. I would worry about the person following in his footsteps, because those would be huge shoes to fill. But
most definitely.
I'm sure, yeah.
So, if you were to say what's the most important piece of advice you might give? I'm gonna first ask for chambers, and just to other chambers that maybe are just now starting out. One in particular that I know.
Oh, right. You were mentioning the Wading River. I think for me the most important thing is to be as responsive as possible. When someone joins a chamber, they're obviously reaching out and they're looking for some kind of help. So just when they reach out to you and say, how do you help, just make sure you're always sitting down, and responding. I think that's my most important thing in my position is when I get a call from a chamber member or an email or whatever it is, I tend to it immediately and right away. And I think that's why, that business now owner feels like, all right, this chamber does care. You want to show that you care, and the best way you show you care is that when you get a question or a concern, you address it. So that would be my first thing that I would establish. And, come around some kind of an event that can celebrate your community. These events that we do really transcend in such a large, broad scale. I hear from people all the time, "Oh, you guys are so active." We've really created this sense of activity and hustle and bustle that really attracts more people to come to our community. So many of the restaurant owners in this community have told me that it was them coming to an Alive After 5 that inspired them to open up a business or a restaurant in this town. So, and don't underestimate those.
I
events.
wanted to hit Alive After 5, not to enjoy it, to actually do a booth, but I really want to do it fun. So I think I think this upcoming season,
that's another place you can whip out that Spider-Man costume.
Well, I'm thinking it would have to have like each Live After 5 would be a theme, and then there would be some very big raffle involved.
Yeah,
but like one
I love
theme
that
could
idea.
be pictures with your superheroes. So
yeah,
like I said, I have Captain America, I have Spider-Man.
All right.
And so pictures with your superheroes would be one. And it doesn't have to be about real estate. A lot of real estate firms, they do these events, and they sit. We could sit there and hand out frisbees that say Coldwell Banker on them. I could, but I think I think just make it a fun thing. I'm thinking like I feel like a big circus tent with like that thing that revolves. I'm thinking a dancing monkey.
I like some of these ideas you got going.
Yeah, so I got some crazy ideas too.
I love it. I love it.
You thought your city of Patchogue was crazy. City of Patchogue? I think.
Yeah, it's look. I love it. I love that it's a starting point of a discussion.
You don't know how
about what Patchogue's going to be in the future.
Have you told other people?
Oh yeah, no, we have. I mean, I think the Long Island Advance did do a little story. One of our previous. I had brought the idea to a previous president of our chamber, James Skidmore, a great individual, community man, and he loved the idea too. And he got the local Long Island Advance to do a little story on it. I think Paul, our mayor, is like, let's not rush ahead. Paul's got things he wants to do, and he doesn't want to scare people because some people might get scared from it. Look. And it's usually generational, the older generations in Patchogue, because a lot of them are families that moved out of the city. So there's a different kind of sense about a city of that generation, where a younger generation embrace cities. Embrace cultural diversity and embrace walkability. Those things that cities provide.
What inspires me from that whole idea is that whole idea of connectivity.
Yeah,
and it's you
well,
just
that's
about
it too. I mean, Patchogue's kind of divided. I mean, as great as the downtown area in the village has exploded, East Patchogue corridor still needs some work, and certainly the town of Brookhaven has done a tremendous job recently, and there's some great projects on the move that are going to hopefully transform the East Patchogue corridor and make it kind of be a reflection on what's going on in the downtown area. But I would, and I love the town of Brookhaven. Town of Brookhaven, Neil Foley, our councilman, does a tremendous job. But town of Brookhaven is huge. Town of Brookhaven is the largest geographic town, I think, in America, certainly in the state, one of the largest in population. And it's a lot to manage a large town like that. I think the village has succeeded because we have a smaller municipality that was able to focus attention on it on a consistent basis. Town of Brookhaven, you got Port Jeff, you got Stony Brook, you got Center Reach, Ronkonkoma. I mean, I can go on and on and on the number of hamlets and communities in the town of Brookhaven, and that's a lot to manage. I think we would do Brookhaven a favor if we were able to hey, let's us incorporate this East Patchogue part into our little Ballywick as well. And maybe it'll help expedite the change a little bit more because there'll be more of that really good close focus and attention that area certainly deserves. And
it's similar to how we run our offices. So I'll manage 35 agents, not 135.
Okay.
It's difficult to keep tabs on.
Yeah, no. Sometimes the bigger things are, the harder it is to manage. So, and again, that's another one that, there's a lot of push about how Long Island has so many levels of government, and certainly consolidation is on the key because we're so highly taxed on Long Island, and maybe all the different levels of government that are taxing are part of it. But I don't know. For me, the village government is almost the most purest form and one of the best forms because it really encourages people who live there to make an impact on the area they live in and have a little bit of control over the area that they live in.
And like they get to see it. It's a direct thing.
Yeah, and keep every community.
You vote for governor, it's like okay, but it's like you vote for mayor. It's I see what he did.
Yeah, you just said it. That's interesting. You say that, Ted. Through my different careers and jobs, I've had opportunities to speak before classes about civics and government. And one of the messages I always say, look, you should vote in every election. And there's an election every year. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 elections a year. From school district to president, you should always vote in every election. But obviously everybody doesn't vote in every election. And unfortunately, the ones people usually skip are the local elected officials. And I say it should be reversed. If you got, no offense to the president of the United States and however you feel, whoever's president, their impact on your daily life is not as direct as that your mayor, your local county legislator, your local councilman, your local school district member. Those people have a direct impact on your life. So if there's going to be offices you want to pay the most attention to, it's on the local level. That's where you should get more engaged because it all kind of trickles up. It doesn't trickle down as much as it trickles up from the local level up.
And I asked you
that's
for
what we need more attention on.
Advice to new fleggling chambers. I'm going to say advice to. I didn't do it intentionally. I just said, well, it should be done. That's okay. We're members of the chamber. We're going to stay members of the chamber. Businesses. So go and just support. It's not about thousands of dollars. It's about going to a meeting. I made it to like 3 different dinner meetings. They were great. I think I was members of 2 different chambers in the beginning. So, so I'm gonna take up my own advice and start participating.
Absolutely.
And I think that should be advice to any organization, any small business in your you have a chamber. Everyone has a chamber. Go help them. Go assist them. And you know what? You'll be surprised how things will change and things will improve.
Yeah, and back in the 70s, there's a great slogan that was established more for the environmental conscious movement, and that was think global, act local. And I think that applies to everything. And it's important to think globally, to think of the bigger picture and how we fit into that bigger picture, but the action should be local, should be in the surroundings that you're in, because that's where you can make the biggest impact. And if everybody thought that way and thought globally but act locally, we'd all be in a better place.
I'm gonna have to dig up an old ad. I believe I used that, but it was something with real estate. It was globally recognized and locally. Gosh, I have no idea what I remember.
But it's the same theme of what we're talking about.
It appeared in the Long Island Advance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe that's where. I just know that I remember the bumper stickers in the 70s. There was a lot of bumper stickers, a picture of the Earth, and it would be think globally, act locally. But I love that slogan because I think that you can apply that pretty much to anything, and it really says it all.
Think global, act local.
Yeah, and we should all do it.
David, thank you so much for coming to do this. This can't be your first podcast.
No, it isn't. I mean, luckily through my position, people asked me to speak on Patchogue, and as anybody who knows me, and you're getting to know too, if there's a topic I could speak hours on, it's Patchogue. I could go here all day if you gave me the opportunity to. So I appreciate this opportunity. It's
Anthony wants me to keep it to an hour.
All right. Hopefully we're not overgoing it. I do want to, before we end, a couple of shout-outs I do want to put out there. I was talking to a lot of great organizations that make Patchogue great. Couple I just want to shout out is our Arts Council, Beth Giacomo. Our Arts Council does so much in making Patchogue unique. And then it's the Patchogue Medford Library, the greatest library probably in the world, in my opinion. The people at the library and the things that they do, they've been such partners in our community that,
and it was
whatever
moved, right?
credit I get, they deserve as much credit.
It was moved.
Yeah, no, well, that Carnegie Library was moved. That's an annex of their library, which was the original main library that was moved. It's a great thing. It looked so perfect in that setting on that corner, but that wasn't its original place. And I stayed up the whole night and watched them move that building from its old location, which was across the street from Reese's, basically, to where it is now. So that was amazing.
Location.
Yeah, perfect location. But the library itself, the staff, staff and all the activities and things that they do for the community. Another, kind of unsung heroes of our community certainly is the library. And then the last thing, this year, starting October 1st, we begin a celebration that the Patchogue Chamber will be celebrating 100 years as a chamber. So I just encourage everybody to look for it. We're going to be doing a lot of things to celebrate the 100th year of the chamber. Our Patchogue Theater just concluded their 100th year celebration. Now this year is going to be about the chamber's 100th anniversary as well.
I'm always amazed at the rich history that exists here.
Yeah,
that's what I've learned in the last 12 years.
Absolutely.
A lot of it.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Excellent.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Ted. A pleasure. I hope we get to do this again.
Oh, yes. So we're going to be seeing a lot of each other.
Excellent.
And I'm Ted. This is the Real Ted G podcast. Thank you, David, and the Patchogue Chamber for everything they do. And, of course, you can find us on Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok.